Lana Del Rey's song The Greatest in many ways feels like a eulogy. The song, released on Lana's 2019 album Norman fucking Rockwell, mourns the wild heyday of the New York rock scene, back when the culture was lit. Something that Lana has effectively been mourning since before she was Lana Del Rey. While Lana spends the majority of the song crooning about lost lovers, lost friends, and a dying rock culture, the ending lyrically takes kind of a stark turn, with Lana singing, "Hawaii just missed a fireball, LA's in flames, it's getting hot." Not only is the New York City culture burning up, so is the world in a literal sense. Whenever I listen to this song, I stop on this line mentally. I understand the grief and the wistfulness that lingers from her voice, and I even understand the frankness in which she delivers these pretty devastating facts as if she's almost trying to emotionally separate herself from them. I am also just a wee bit skeptical of Lana Del Rey environmentalism as a concept, but it's something that really interests me. So here we are. This video is going to be slightly less polished, a little less research heavy. Just going to be working off of my big brain, giant Lana Del Rey knowledge. But if this video style is something that you want to see a little more of in the future, drop a comment, let me know. I'm still going to be doing more research heavy, longer videos, but I can sprinkle a few of these in there. So yeah. If you're not subscribed yet and you want to just click the subscribe button down below, I'm still a very small new channel and that would help me out a lot. So thank you. Lana Del Rey is the epitome of early to mid 2010s Tumblr Americana. Her persona of the sad party girl from trailer parks in love with old men with old money is something that really resonated with me as a teen, and I am far from the only one. Lana's music has always existed on the borders of nostalgia, wistfulness, and romance. Something that's been really evident in her music since the early days with songs like Video Games, a song that yearns for the romance of domestic submissiveness, which is delivered with a notably downtrodden tone. As a pretty depressed teen, I got a lot out of Lana's music. It never really uplifted me, but that was kind of the point. Listening to Born to Die, Paradise, and Ultraviolence kind of offered me a space to kind of just bask in those sad feelings and really just feel them all. Now, Lana's career and political standings have been controversial, to say the least. With her inclination towards Americana and her refusal to self-identify as a feminist, in the very weird early 2010s, a lot of people weren't really sure where she stood. Eventually, alongside white, liberal-leaning celebrities, she came out in 2016-ish, around the inauguration of Donald Trump, as a liberal. She laid pretty low for a little bit, and then she started dating a cop and posted probably the cringiest racially charged Instagram post about how she's not as respected as her black peers, and it was ugh. Since then, it seems like everyone has kind of just moved past that and decided to leave the past in the past, and I don't think she's done anything super problematic ever since, but who's to say? But yeah, these days she seems to be really thriving with the release of Did You Know That There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard last year, and her Coachella performance that just happened in the last couple of weeks, which I was seated for. I was watching it very seriously, and I had a great time. So of all the ways to talk about Lana, all her scandals, all the subjects that she speaks about in her songs, why am I focusing on environmentalism? Aside from the fact that this channel is about pop culture and environmentalism. Let's get into it. In recent years, California forest fires have everybody and their mother coming out of the woodworks. This is probably because forest fires are a threat that don't spare the wealthy. A 2022 study by Resources for the Future even found that, quote, hazard and impact from recent wildfires are disproportionately borne by high-income, white, and elderly communities, and by owners of high-value properties, but also from the lowest value homes in Western United States and among Native American communities, unquote. In many ways, celebrities have been forced to grapple with the harsh realities of environmental destruction, something that really hasn't impacted them up until this point. We briefly touched on this in my video about Down to Earth with Zac Efron, which if you hadn't seen, You should watch it. I put a link in my bio. Check it out. Damn. Forest fire discourse from a celebrity standpoint can be like a little graceless. In the same way that celebrities were kind of a little during the beginning of the pandemic. Like, takes the Sam Smith article that's really funny as an example. Like, I'm sure you're going to be okay, Sam. I'm positive. When Lana croons about environmental destruction and forest fires, I'm kind of two minds. Part of me is like, eye roll, this is so typical. But the other part of me is kind of deeply attached to these lyrics. I have never for a second called Lana Del Rey an environmental activist. Just because, like I've spoken about in my last two videos, there's a huge difference between like pointing out that there's a problem and then actually actively engaging with these topics. But that's not really what interests me in the case of Lana. What interests me is the ways in which she kind of conflates nostalgia, romance, popular culture, and climate grief. This whirlwind of emotions all conflated to create a really devastating experience of anthropogenic climate change. Before the very overt lyrics in The Greatest, Lana had explored her relationship to nature very early on in her career, with the release of the 27-minute short film Tropico, which acted as a music video for 3 of her songs off the Paradise EP, Body Electric, Gods and Monsters, and Bel Air. The film opens with Lana and her lover as Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, with American icons Elvis, Marilyn Monroe, and, of course, Jesus. The great creator John Wayne declares, "Let there be light." In this wholly unnatural space, we witness the birth, death, and reconstruction of culture and nature itself through the eyes of Miss Lana. After her campy, raunchy fall from the Paradise Garden, Lana and her lover return to nature. John Wayne monologues about the beautiful natural landscapes of America from sea to shining sea. It's truly the, this land is your land for women, if that makes sense. After moving to California in the Norman fucking Rockwell era, the kind of glitz and glam of Lana's America is really narrowed down to a study of Los Angeles, its beaches, its bars, its smog, and its fires. LA feels almost claustrophobic here, like we're really witnessing Lana just pacing back and forth up the same 4 blocks of Venice Beach. After the more upbeat feeling of her 2017 release Lust for Life, NFR feels notably more downtrodden and mournful. It's not the same miserable as Ultraviolence, though. In fact, in Hope is a Dangerous Thing for a Woman Like Me to Have, Lana states, "Don't ask if I'm happy, you know that I'm not, but at best you can see I'm not sad." There seems to be a feeling of acceptance in the inability to control your life and your narrative, and to give room to feelings of both loss and hope. In The Greatest, Lana's nostalgic lyrics about the death of the rock scene both mourn and accept the end of an era that was so meaningful to her. The Greatest also connects the loss of culture to the loss of livable land due to climate change. The seemingly loose connection between pop culture and climate change may seem a little bit vapid, but it actually makes a lot of sense to me. Climate grief is a really hard topic to understand and kind of grapple with. It's not really talked about in schools, and it's not really a widely accepted feeling. It's not very concrete, to say the least. But that being said, it's really a feeling that kind of affects everybody who's not a climate change denier. But even then, I feel like that's a coping mechanism. Climate change has been an urgent issue for decades now, and yet things are only getting worse faster. The feeling of time slipping away, of mourning something vast like culture or environmental security, is really scary and hard to kind of wrap your head around. One could argue that Lana is maybe experiencing kind of the second wave feminist brand of environmental grief, like that mysterious ennui that plagues the middle-class white housewife. It affects her day-to-day in the sense that she's breathing in smog on the regular, but she's also not a victim of anything like environmental racism or environmental displacement. Lana understands climate grief in the same way that she understands grieving over love or grieving over culture. Grief is so embedded in her music, even from the early days in songs like Blue Jeans, songs where she feels like she's desperately clinging on to something that's leaving, but she hasn't really accepted it yet. She's therefore very easily able to connect this to her feelings of grief surrounding the changing California landscape, a place that she now calls home. In Solastalgia, the distress caused by environmental change, Glenn Albrecht argues that in a time of global environmental crisis, both geographical and temporal definitions can be taken into consideration when discussing feelings of nostalgia for a land that is undergoing rapid transformation, such as climate change. Albrecht proposes the term solastalgia to understand the feeling of, quote, the homesickness you have when you are still home, unquote. As California burns, she clings on to a feeling of connectedness to the American landscape, one that she felt so deeply in Tropico. In Wild at Heart, off of Lana's 2021 LP, Chemtrails Over the Country Club, Lana states that she smokes cigarettes just to understand the smog of Los Angeles. A line that I feel like really perfectly encapsulates this idea of both powerlessness and nostalgia in the face of climate change. Through smoking cigarettes, Lana, in a sense, attempts to change alongside a changing landscape. I feel like it's pretty safe to say that Lana understands space effectively. Though it can't be directly linked to environmental discourse, the covered-up tunnel under Ocean Boulevard is quintessential in terms of understanding her connection to nostalgia for place, whether it be built or natural. In the titular song off Did You Know That There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard, Lana likens herself to the boarded-up tunnel underneath said boulevard, writing, I can't help but feel like my body marred my soul, handmade beauty sealed up by two man-made walls. She's the tunnel to be opened. She's the LA air when she smokes cigarettes. These lines carry with them a feeling of constraint, but they're also accepting and almost hopeful. Lana's, I guess, less talked about poetry collection, Violent Bent Backwards Over the Grass, which was released in both writing and in spoken word, kind of elaborates on a lot of these concepts. Here, Lana writes on letting go of feelings of grief through practicing not caring and kind of doing nothing. In the titular poem, Lana writes on a party she attends. After watching children playing in the grass, doing nothing, she states that, in that moment, I decided to do nothing about everything. Now, the concept of nothing and everything here is obviously super vague, but in the poem Paradise is Fragile, Lana writes specifically on global warming, stating, Paradise is very fragile, and it seems like it's only getting worse. Down here in Florida, we're fighting red toxic tides, massive fish kills, not to mention hurricanes and rising sea levels. Back in Los Angeles, things aren't looking much better. My treehouse that had been standing for 80 years succumbed to the Woolsey fire. She then elaborates, my heart is very fragile and I have nothing left to give. And these lyrics make me feel so conflicted. Like, I really do get where she's coming from here. But also I find this take kind of like a little weird, coming from just like such a huge celebrity and like a very wealthy white woman, because I know these feelings are still very valid, but I guess just like hearing such like a wealthy person being like, I've decided to do nothing, just kind of like would just leave a bad taste in anyone's mouth. I also feel like there's people who have really effectively discussed some of these ideas, like, for example, Childish Gambino's music video for Feels Like Summer really mobilizes a feeling of nostalgia, and I think really kind of talks about the wistfulness and the nostalgia that comes alongside climate grief. I may or may not be covering this music video in an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that. But anyways, I find this poetry collection to be a really powerful turning point for Lana, between NFR and Chemtrails Over the Country Club. This is really the point where she goes from this heavy feeling of grief to this desire to escape and be free. Much like the glorious Paradise and Tropico era of 2014, Lana is still wandering the great beauties of the United States landscape, looking to find meaning in both herself and the space. After the California-centric Norman fucking Rockwell, Lana spends some time in the Midwest, where Chemtrails is set. This album is all about escape, something that's made evidence once again on the song Wild at Heart, where she states that she left Calabasas and escaped all the ashes, and through her soul-searching in the Midwest, discovered that she is one hell of a wild woman. It's the song's titular track. Oh my god, I literally keep repeating titular track, but I guess I do love a good Lana Del Rey track. But anyway, the song Chemtrails over the Country Club is like specifically really interesting to me in terms of this narrative. While in the Midwest, Lana spends her time in lush comfort, wearing her jewels in the swimming pool, playing it cool with her sister, under the chemtrails over the country club. I have to admit that I did know what chemtrails were. I knew it was a conspiracy theory. I knew what it was. But, like, I didn't know how linked to conspiracy culture it was and, like, how, I guess. Because when I heard chemtrails over the country club, I really thought of, like, crop dusters in, like, golf courses and country clubs, like, back in the day, which were, like a serious health and environmental concern. But this is very not that. In fact, it's actually really linked to climate denialism, which is just like equally interesting in this case, given Lana's kind of switch between caring a lot and being deeply affected and deciding to be carefree and to do nothing. In this insular world of the country club, Lana is able to mentally escape the burdens of the grief we just spoke about as she returns to almost like this archetypal Lana figure of Born to Die in Ultraviolence, this carefree wild girl living in luxury. The ideas off this song really add to Lana's poetry in Violet, in which she has nothing left to give, and in turn, she'd rather do nothing about everything. The idea of doing nothing is so loaded. Like, what does that really mean? It can really like vary from person to person, from case to case. But based on Lana's narrative, this really means, I guess, letting go of one's grief and just living like a really carefree lifestyle. Like I stated earlier, in theory, this isn't like an inherently problematic take. As someone who's really invested in climate activism and who spends so much time reading and writing on the subject, it can be really emotionally taxing. And sometimes I do need a break. I do need a little bit of an escape. And yeah, it's really taxing to care that much, even though it is really important and I'm happy to be doing it. Again, I will state that the ability to kind of like do nothing and not care is like a really, really privileged standpoint to take. And I am by no means like endorsing that. But I do think that Lana really interestingly depicts the struggle to come to terms with one's feelings towards the environment and the ways that these feelings can transform and bleed into other feelings. Her writing also depicts the ways in which these conflated feelings can lead to a general feeling of carelessness about certain causes. And of course, it's important to give yourself grace and to rest and take a break. But there exists a happy medium between, I guess, like being a doomer, like she is an NFR, and just like completely not caring like she does in Chemtrails, which again is something that I've spoken about in my Down to Earth video. Lana will always be a polarizing figure. She's one of the rare cases in which a female celebrity with kind of a problematic past has been given a lot of grace. And is this warranted? That's up for debate. But having followed her career for over a decade at this point, I feel like in a lot of ways, she's given me the really wonderful chance to parasocially, yet so intimately watch someone grow as a pop culture figure, as an artist, and as an imperfect person who deals with universal feelings of grief. Lana's environmentalism is not perfect, and again, I wouldn't even really call it activism, but what she does offer is a shared space to really soak up these feelings of grief and to just allow yourself to experience them and to kind of wallow in them. Her openness about these feelings and experiences help to, in a way, break stigmas about things that she has experienced, such as unhealthy relationships to substances and people, as well as these various forms of grief that we've covered. Much like I listened to Born to Die, Paradise, and Ultraviolence to bask in feelings of teenage sadness, listening to Lana Del Rey's more recent music has given me the opportunity to kind of just bask in these unhelpful or unuseful feelings of climate grief that are natural and that I sometimes feel. And to me, that's very comforting. In many ways, her music exists to me as both a safe space to feel difficult emotions and as an escape that I can return to. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if this kind of less research heavy type style is something that you enjoy, drop a comment. What's your favorite Lana album? What's your favorite Lana song? I want to hear your hot Lana takes, whether they are environmental or not. So, yes, drop a comment down below, subscribe, share with your friends. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.